Hello, Move Data. I'm Tristan Handy. I'm the CEO, founder of dbtLabs. I am excited to talk to you today about my billboard, guardrails, not stop signs. And that probably doesn't make any sense at all. And so let me start at the beginning and talk about, maybe give you a little bit of context on where I'm coming from. Recently, I tried something very silly at a conference talk that I gave. I tried to summarize really everything about the modern data stack. What's the novel innovation in the modern data stack in a single 2x2? So I'm going to walk through that for a second, and then I'm going to get back to guardrails and stop signs. Okay, so here's my 2x2. Let's start by putting velocity on the x-axis. Velocity in this context is how quickly can your organization know new things. So on the left side, you imagine you need to submit a ticket to some centralized data team, and you have to wait 3 months to get a new column added to a table. Really slow. On the right, you can answer your questions as fast as you can ask them in your head. So this is the x-axis. All right. Let's put governance on the y-axis. At the bottom, you have this complete mess, total chaos. Think spreadsheets sent as email attachments. V7 final. We've all lived this at some point in our careers. In this environment, no one is able to really provide quality or timeliness guarantees. Lineage is unknowable and errors are everywhere. So at the other end of this continuum, at the top, you have this mythical data ecosystem with perfect SLAs, clear lineage, discoverability, observability, and more. Now, to be honest, I'm not totally sure that this perfect world actually exists today, but we're all moving in this direction, and hopefully you recognize this from your work. The state of the art prior to the modern data stack forced you to choose between velocity and governance. The tools that would meet all of your governance needs could only be used by a small centralized team, and this team always had huge backlogs. This was super slow. Tools that allowed you to move quickly were largely ungoverned. This formed a frontier in our industry. You could move along this line, but you couldn't go above it. And this status quo has lasted for about as long as everyone has had a computer on their desk. Seriously. Slow and governed versus fast and ungoverned. The modern data stack allowed you to push out that efficient frontier. For the first time ever, you could do fast and governed. This is game-changing. We're seeing huge organizations learn to move fast. We're seeing small teams incorporate real maturity into their data. But the modern data stack has made this possible, not easy. And there could sometimes be real organizational tension that arises while navigating this transition. This is when we get back to stop signs and guardrails. This tension really comes from centralized data teams that have a decade plus of experience with line of business users who only screw things up. Name your tool of choice a decade ago, and it didn't have the guardrails required to create mature, governed pipelines. And so centralized data teams have developed this opinion of line of business folks that their work is not high quality. It's not quote unquote production grade. And line of business folks have been told no so many times that they barely even think to ask anymore. The centralized function is not a partner. It is often something to be gotten around. So this scar tissue goes deep, and my guess is that you've experienced some version of this at some point in your career. I've lived on both sides of it, and I have a lot of empathy for folks on each side. But I think that what we need to do is we need to actually realize that we don't have to live in that world anymore, and we have to educate lots and lots of folks on why that's true. So I want to try to change that mentality here. I think that there's really 4 points that we need to absorb. The first one, like, keep your eye on the prize. What does that mean? So I want to zoom out for a second, get away from your day-to-day. Imagine 5 or 10 years down the road. In that time frame, there is really no way that people who make the decisions in a business are going to be unable to answer their own questions. I mean, just imagine that being true. Like the people who need to make decisions need to be able to go through the analytical thought process on their own. And forcing people to slow down, injecting friction isn't an answer. It's an invitation for people to work around the process. Velocity is not an option. It must be maintained for you to have any chance. Second thing, don't say no. Instead, figure out how to do the thing that the line of business folks are asking for, because they need it for a reason. All engagement with data is good engagement. And so the question is not, should we support thing X? It is finding a way to support thing X that has the appropriate maturity and governance required. Third thing, assume that everybody involved in this process has a tremendous amount of capability and intelligence. One of my early stories as the CEO of Fishtown Analytics, now dbtLabs, is that I was told over and over again by venture investors that data analysts didn't know how to code. They didn't want to know how to code. They were not capable of learning this thing, capable of or interested in learning this thing. And that was a really strange thing for me to hear, because I am a data analyst. And I'm thinking, gosh, data analysts are incredibly capable, incredibly competent. So I think that what we've learned over years and years of building the DBT community is actually that there are so many people who have much more capability and confidence than we give them credit for. So don't underestimate your peers and in different parts of the organization. The last thing, move up the stack. As other people become more capable, you are able to take on new roles and do more and better things. Okay, guardrails. What is a guardrail? Well, software engineers use guardrails all the time. Guardrails are just a recognition that knowledge work is complex and errors happen. Guardrails are the systems that allow us to be robust against these inevitable errors. Oftentimes, folks think of that these are tools that require software engineering expertise, but that's not true. Testing, pull requests, linting, observability, like these are not things that require computer science degrees. Anyone can learn to write tests. Anyone can benefit from static analysis. I'm not a software engineer, and I would be lost without those guardrails. So what guardrails do you need to set up in your data org? My encouragement today is to be an agent of this change. It's scary. Most data folks didn't get into their jobs because they were experts at convincing large groups of people to do new, uncomfortable things. But if we lean into this change as practitioners, there are so many benefits to be had. Organizations that are, I don't know, more functional, jobs that are more fulfilling. And if our experience is any guide, often pay better. For now, I just want to say thanks to you so much for listening. It's been a pleasure.